My name is Kari Syrjänen. I'm based at the moment in Turku, Finland. And I'm officially retired, but I served for more than 40 years in different academic positions, including professor and chairman of the pathology in the University of Eastern Finland, and also dean of the medical faculty for 5 years. But last 6 years I was involved as a chief medical director in one of the biotechnology companies in Finland, after which I retired officially at the end of 2018. And education, of course, I'm MD, PhD, and specialist in pathology. This is a long story, actually. I started my scientific career already in early 1970s, just a year or two before I graduated in medicine. So I became interested very early, and first I did some research with breast cancer, but then 1977 I shifted to Papilloma virus research, which has been by far my most important topic during my career, having published international textbooks and so on. And we did something very unique early in early 80s. So we started so-called prospective follow-up study, which we could run almost 20 years. And that was unique in that we could establish without any treatment how papillomavirus lesions in the uterine cervix behave in the long run. And we learned a lot. So from that single study, we published almost 300 papers and some very, very new and completely new ideas at the time. And so this has been my main topic without any doubt. And then I have had a side interest in gastrointestinal pathology, for example, colorectal cancer screening and such things. And still a few extra works in breast cancer. But really, beyond any doubt, I'm best known globally as a papillomavirus researcher, and we published really 2 big textbooks on that already in 1987, which was actually the first textbook ever published on papillomavirus, and it attracted a lot of interest. And I have still continued even until these days in separate forms of virus research throughout my career. And of course, important is I think indicated by the fact that one of the pioneers in the field, Professor Harald Surhausen, received the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2008, which signifies that HPV research globally is very important, not only in the genital tract, but there are also other tumors which we now know that HPV associated, including the cancers of the head and neck. And the HPV is so important that it has become in everyday practice, so that whenever people contemplate treating head and neck cancer, they first test HPV. And if it's positive, it has different implications in etiology, in prognosis and treatment. So there are a lot of practical applications. Of course, probably the globally most interesting and important is the introduction of HPV vaccines in early 2000s, which have really, in the long run, they will probably eradicate most of the HPV-associated tumors. So after 45 years of scientific career, I'm quite confident and happy that I selected that topic, which has been very rewarding to see how one single topic develops from the infancy until almost at the final solution of the disease by vaccines, which is by far the last of the so-called Koch postulates, which is the indication that 100% indication that something is etiologically related to the outcome of the disease. So this was in short. Yeah, clinical trials, of course, in different types of clinical trials. For example, if we speak about HPV field, so we were very early in clinical trials with interference in the late 80s and early 90s, because at that time people believed that interference would solve the issue, and there were several international randomized trials with interferon and placebo, and unfortunately the outcome was that interference as a single therapy did not solve the issue. And then other major studies where our group has been involved are 3 major international studies funded by European Commission, and these are all HPV related. So the 2 last ones, which were just finished a few years ago, tested different types of modalities of population-based screening, so that not only Papa Nicolau smear, but also HPV testing and colposcopy, visual inspection and such things. And these were funded by European Commission, and partners were from Latin America, several partners, and also in other study there were partners from Eastern Europe and Asia. And during my 6 last years at the office, so in the biotechnology company, we of course had a lot of very good funding to make clinical trials with their products, also which I designed and coordinated. So this has been one important field of my research, running and designing international trials and coordinating such studies. Very, very interesting and rewarding job also. International Academy of Cytology, because our journal, which you interview me for, the Acta Cytologica, is owned by this international organization. So as an editor, I'm automatically involved in their administrative council, so have been since 2013. But before that, of course, I have been in several other societies, and for example, European Federation of Cytology Society, where I was president in 1991, when we had the privilege of organizing the European conference in Finland. So, and then, well, other to be mentioned here is this organization called Eurogene, which was established in 1991 and still is active and organizing international congress once a year. So, and of course, also mentioned is to be the International Papilloma Virus Society, which was established in 1995, and I was one of the founding members and served in the board for 15 years. Also, I think the major advantage in being linked with the society is that you get a good network of, you get connected with other people with similar interests. And I think this is one of the most important issue, and that's why I should encourage also younger people to join the professional organizations and societies, so that if they're really interested in developing themselves as scientists. And of course, the other aspect is to develop themselves professionally, because many of the societies have in their program important aspect of giving education, training and teaching, and participating on those events certainly increases your capabilities in many fields. So I think this is quite clear, and this is why most of the societies exist. They have both to promote international networking, to promote international research contexts, and then high quality training in the specialties which they are involved in. And I had a chance also to visit the central office and met Gabriella Karger, become acquainted with her, and learned, really confirmed my impression that this is really a publisher which is different from the big ones, so that you get much more personal service, so let's say customer-friendly service, including also authors, readers, editors, editorial board members, associate editors. There's no secret. I think that the publication field, I think, is in the process of a lot of challenges and turmoil because of the predator journals and online and such things. So I think Karger has reacted quite actively in this development. So there are good plans to also increase the content to the direction of education and training, not only purely scientific papers, because this is an international organization which training is one of the major components of its mission, so that we try to get more and more content to Acta. So of course, the priority is given to regular high-quality submissions. And also important aspect is the special issues, which we try to publish at least once. 1 out of the 6 every year should be special issues, which are prepared in such a way that you decide the content before you start inviting people to authors, because some other journals do it completely different way, so that they say this is special issue, and then they start just inviting. But after we do first the content, then the authors, and then official invitations. And this has worked very well. So this is one aspect. And the other one, of course, would be to include more content on the training. And in a way, this is to publish case reports of interesting cases. But there's a problem with that, because case reports with rare cases, they are very good for training purposes and people for learning. So we try to serve wide aspect as possible. And of course, editorials are important, so that when something interesting happens, for example, in the conferences, so people can write the keynotes and editorials, so that these are useful for those who could not attend the event. And also we try to encourage the national societies to submit material from their national events, because sometimes the national meetings are very, very interesting and important scientifically also, and then other people should also be interested in reading what happens in the neighboring countries or in remote countries. So this is one of the aspects, because Acta Academy is affiliated by more than 50 national societies, and there is in every country there is a national editor who also will a little bit different role in different countries. Some countries they promote, for example, papers from that country and such things, and their responsibility, of course, would be to provide material from nationally interesting events and training educations.